Good morning and welcome to Live Impact News here on 13 News Now Plus. It is December 2nd. The day is Tuesday and it's 10:02 a.m. We're about 2 minutes late getting to you here this morning. We apologize for the lack of punctuality. I want to blame meteorologist Craig Moeller, but I simply cannot. He was here early, he was here on time, and then he was here early again, and he's got a point to be made already. He's raising his hand. Yes, Craig.
Let me say, okay, our fantastic producer, Naya, is in, all right? But we could hang the delayed start here only by a minute or so on the fact that you were confronting weather conditions out there that tie into one of our lead stories.
Yes, it's a weather impact alert. That's why I was late.
Yeah, but specifically, no, we're kind of giving her a hard time, but not really. You said you saw some flooded roads on the way in.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I didn't know it was going to be that bad. But.
Okay, now Naya's hurting me, okay? I really was going to go to bat for her, but apparently she missed out on Daybreak or the weather desk.
No, it's specific areas that I just wasn't prepared to be the way they were.
Again,
Right.
specifically on Daybreak where we said, Naya, avoid this intersection. No, we do have the potential for some backed up water and poor drainage areas and, again, ponding, a big issue.
Leave it to Craig Moeller to come in hot, by the way. To come in hot. I was ready to shoulder any and all blame for the 2 minutes of lateness here, and then Craig's just, why isn't anyone watching my show?
Oh, my
This
goodness.
isn't my fault.
Going to have another cup of coffee. Go ahead.
Craig is extra hyped up because a team from Chicago called the Bears defeated the Philadelphia Eagles the Friday after Thanksgiving. He's already brought it up to me twice. He keeps talking about Ben Johnson, shirtless Ben Johnson, shirt full Ben Johnson.
For the people.
For the people,
yes.
A man of the people, Ben Johnson, head coach of the Chicago Bears. So he's got a little bit of extra energy today. He also is getting ready to host a big event this Saturday.
We're going to talk about that. Can I just stop just for a second? Because you just left it with, I was excited talking about a shirtless coach of the Bears. There's a reason, okay?
I had to set you up.
I know.
I had to set you up.
Yeah, the whole city of Chicago got free hot dogs from the Wiener Circle today, actually. If the coach took off his shirt in a post-game celebration, he did it. He is a man of the people. So
yes.
That being said, I would love to discuss weather.
Did they mail you one? Did they mail you one of the hot dogs?
No, but I was thinking if I show up in Chicago, let's say I go there in a month or two, if I stop in and say, hey, I was on the East Coast for the Wiener Circle promotion.
Yeah.
Maybe they'd hook me up.
Can we do this? Can you and I make a friendly agreement right now?
What's that?
Philadelphia Eagles fan, Chicago Bears fan, whichever team goes further in the playoffs, right? The other person buys hot dogs for Live Impact News, and we all share a hot dog together.
I'll do that.
You do that?
I'll do that. Sure.
All right. We've
Not
got
Wiener
ourselves
Circle,
a deal.
it'll be-
We don't have a Wiener Circle here in Hampton Roads,
We
unfortunately.
did some good hot dogs.
But we got some good hot dogs. Okay, so if the Eagles go further, Craig provides hot dogs for Live Impact News. If the Bears go further, I provide hot dogs. The only person who truly wins here is Nia Campbell, who's just either way is getting free lunch.
Either way, Glizzy's on us.
Right.
That's
exactly.
what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
So.
Okay. All right. What are you here
nothing
for
to do
again?
with that.
Let's talk weather.
Let's talk
That's
weather.
right. That's right.
All right. So, honestly, we're joking around a little bit here with all the other stuff, but we do have a weather impact alert because we've been dealing with rain. Now, nothing severe. Okay, we do not have severe weather. We do not have snow or freezing rain or ice or any of those things. So I want to start with that. But the rain is heavy enough that we are seeing some ponding on the roads and maybe even some flooding and poor drainage or low-lying areas. And to that, Naya, again, if you want to explain, you came up on an intersection where, maybe typically it backs up, but you actually had to kind of work around it.
Yeah, definitely had to work around it. And then some, people were not used to the flood. I guess not used to the flooding either. So they were stopping completely in the intersection. I'm like, no, you can't do that. I mean, you don't want to drive through floodwaters, of course, but you got to work your way through there.
Yeah, no, our advice is always turn around, don't drown. You never want to try to cross flooded roadways, but there are obviously areas it's just a poor drainage area or something. The concern is that the roads may be a little difficult, especially hitting those ponds at, say, freeway speed, or, you don't even have to be going interstate speed. If you hit them even on some of the secondary roads, you could get loose on the car. So we really want folks to be careful. Rain is going to be happening for probably the next, what time is it now? Just after 10? Probably the next 2.5 hours or so. After that, it moves offshore. We get much drier through the afternoon. I think the evening commute's going to be fine. In fact, we might even see a few breaks in the clouds later on. Additional rainfall, probably in the neighborhood of 1/4 to, say, 1/2 or 3/4 of an inch. The GFS still going a little bit more. That's kind of the outlier. But when all's said and done, 1 to 2 inches widespread across the area. We've already had the heaviest rain, but it's still coming down in some areas, and we want to get into that. Connor, feel free to jump in at any point if you've got a question about anything I'm saying here.
No, sir. This is great. I mean, this is the information we need. The weather impact alert today. You are on a roll. Keep on going.
All right. So over the next 3 hours or so, 2.5 to 3 hours, pretty good chances for rain. Now, as a meteorologist, you are always hesitant to show 100% chance of anything. I have learned that in my 72 years of broadcasting, okay? Naya, it hasn't been 72 years. It's only been about 36. Okay?
Naya gave you she nodded as if that was a fact that we all have known.
She took that. Naya is just like, yeah, okay.
She said, right, 72. Yeah. Yep,
she's
sounds
just
about
like,
right.
Preach, go ahead. All right. I do remember when we'd actually sign off overnight. But anyway, what I can tell you, again, the chances for rain, really, really good and widespread. So that's why you see that 100%. All right, now as we go along, you see how widespread that rain is, and we're not done with it yet. It extends out through western portions or central portions of North Carolina. Out to the west, it becomes more showery. Off to the north, places up across Pennsylvania, New York State, not rain, but snow up that way. And we'll take a little closer look at some of the regions getting hit with the various precip. For our area, it's kind of moderate rain to heavier rain. When you look off to the northwest, now we're seeing some showers kind of tapering off, but still a little bit of mix in some of the higher country. I will tell you, I went to Asheville over the weekend for the Thanksgiving weekend.
Nice.
Had a blast. Absolutely love Asheville. And that town, the resiliency after Hurricane Helene last year, to see them coming back, it was awesome. I bring up Asheville because those mountain areas, overnight lows were down into the low 20s, and we had highs in the 30s and low 40s over the weekend. So it was much cooler over the mountains. You're seeing some of those cool temperatures extending farther north, and that's why you see some of that mix all the way up through Hagerstown. You get up into, let's say Harrisonburg area, or Harrisburg. I tried to throw in an extra syllable there.
Yeah, listen, Harrisonburg
became
also
Harrisonburg.
A thing. Yes.
Yeah, that's true. It's all up
Both
there.
places.
So anyway, we do have some of the snow that's been occurring. Now over towards Philly, not as much. It's been more rain there, but a little bit of mixing off to the north. Bottom line is there is this big storm system moving along, and this thing is forecast to bomb out as it moves past our area. That's rapid intensification within a 24-hour period, maybe dropping more than 24 millibars. So when these things really ramp up, a lot of wind, a lot of issues, a lot of times for the Northeast U.S. We're going to be watching that. For us, the wind hasn't been too bad. The rain is coming down, and it continues to come down, that moderate to heavier rain. Northern part of the Outer Banks, Kill Devil Hills up through Corolla, Elizabeth City through Moyock. You get into southern parts of Virginia Beach, down around Blackwater and up through Pungo, Princess Anne, those parts of Virginia Beach, seeing it. And then we've got the rain pretty heavy across parts of Norfolk and Portsmouth. We're going to continue to watch this over towards the Lesnar. You're seeing that heavier rain back towards Bayside, around Little Creek, back across the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, and up to the eastern shore. So that's what's going on there with the heavy rain. Before I move off this, any questions? You guys good?
No, we had nothing other than rain this morning, right? There was
Just
no, it
rain
was just
for our
rain.
area. Great
Okay.
question. All right, so check this out. Temperatures are in the 30s right now inland. We have 40s and 50s closer to the coast, and really low 60s down to the south, Currituck, Elizabeth City. So this has been a mild system coming through for most of us. That cooler air out west is eventually going to find its way to Hampton Roads. Right now, with this live Thompson Creek Window Company Skyview, Town Center, Virginia Beach, very wet. And that rain continues, that view from atop the Westin. At the airport, the rain's coming down heavy. It is 56 degrees. Winds are light, and the pressure falls as that low pressure is tracking past the region. So with the Futurecast, you see how the rain moves along, and it eventually pulls away. Things will be improving. But look at this, okay? Connor, I know you're a bit of a snow dog yourself.
Now, the only question I have is, what is a snow dog?
So it's a dog.
Right.
I'll leave that open to your interpretation. No, it's somebody that loves snow. You ever have a snow dog? They like to go out, play in the snow, run around, romp around in the snow?
I had a miniature dachshund when I was a kid who thought he was a snow dog, but the legs were so short that he really couldn't maneuver through. He'd just be buried immediately.
I'm telling you, yeah, their legs are so tiny. I mean, it just takes an inch or so.
But you
they're
are
like
correct.
knee deep. Yeah.
They're gone. They disappear. But you are correct. I do love a bit of snow myself. Now, I love a bit of snow as long as it's something that everybody can enjoy, not something that inhibits our sort of daily maneuvers here.
So we're taking a look right here, and I'm showing you this, and I've stopped this at 7 a.m. because there's one little feature that we have coming down off the bay. You see where it says Melfa there on the screen, 32? Yeah. All right, you look just to the west of that, just to the left of that on the screen, you see that gray streak from the Chesapeake Bay. That is an indication of cold air blowing across the bay, and there might be a couple of flurries. Again, it's not going to add up to much, but if we get that little streamer coming off, wouldn't shock me at all to hear people saying, hey, around Great Neck or maybe down towards the Lynn Haven area, oh my gosh, we're seeing some flurries. You know, is this stuff going to stick? What's going on?
That's right in my area. So I'll be keeping an eye out. And that's Wednesday.
That's early
afternoon.
Early tomorrow morning.
Early tomorrow morning.
Yeah, by afternoon we're up into the mid 40s. So it will be warming a bit. But I just wanted to give that heads up. Kind of fun for folks to think about. Hey, we might get a few Bay effect flurries. Well, we just had a snow dog walk into the studio. Janet, come on over here real quick. She's going to come on over here. Come on, you got your coat on. We're talking weather here, and Janet is the best. So I'm going to bring Janet. We got her on the highway.
Janet Roach in the house. So Janet Roach with the wave.
You just drove down from the peaceful peninsula. Give us a quick update. How are the roads?
Rain.
Yeah.
It was a blinding rain at some point.
A blinding rain. So it was intense enough that you were going full blast with the...
with the wipers.
And it wasn't
watching
enough.
The trucks getting a little too close. I'm like, back up off me.
and something else to think about, Janet. You bring up
Janet coming in hot. Our second guest coming in hot today.
This is why Janet, this is gold. She is streaming gold.
Back up off me, the Janet Roach story.
You bring up... I wish I could turn the camera. I can't hear. I'm going to slide over just so you can get in because we want to see more of Janet.
Any makeup.
There's more. Oh, you're lovely as always. Come on. No, so she brings up a good point, Connor. Not only do we have to worry about some of the ponding or slow drainage areas, which can be problematic, but when you've got cars going by the interstate, they're kicking up the moisture off the road. Those trucks
especially the trucks. That's why I was like, and keeping my distance as well, slowing down. Both hands on the wheel.
Now, Janet, question, how much did it increase your commute time?
Maybe by like 5 minutes.
Okay.
The traffic wasn't backed up, so that was key.
Okay.
It wasn't bad. It was moving, but, I did slow down. And people were, for the most part, being pretty good.
Cool.
64 coming down the peninsula, never any issues there.
No, those tunnels, they just...
Smooth sailing.
Smooth
sailing.
They just say, come on in.
Yeah, the construction merging all of the lanes to one lane, no issues.
If I have to go through the tunnel, I usually leave 15 minutes late because I know it's going to be so easy.
Yeah.
There's no need to get out of there
Just
early.
a breeze. But you guys called it. You said it was going to rain like this, and here it is.
But
as always.
Thank you.
As
Yeah,
always,
she's
yeah.
so good. So anyway, Janet, thank you. Though I didn't mean to. Well, I did mean to pull you on as soon as I saw you. That's why she's
That's
here.
exactly what
But-
happened. That was
but
your full intention.
Your insights really help people understand what the issues are out there. And again, roads are still wet. It's going to continue to rain for the next
I
couple
can
of
hear
hours.
it still.
Yeah, it's coming down on the studios here. So we do have that. Maybe another half an inch of rain additional to what we've already seen. So if you want to take the graphics one more time, Naya, we can
What
show
else
you
is up,
that.
Janet? What else is on your mind?
I had an umbrella and those big plastic like
Yeah.
We've talked-
ponchos.
yeah,
We
okay.
had
Yeah, yeah.
all that on.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were rocking a poncho into the studio today?
You know,
Oh.
just because this is live streaming and this is what people tune in for, right? Impact News. No, Janet used to threaten to wear a shower cap and it was flip flops to pick up your daughter from school, right? Just if you ever needed to.
Just if I needed to embarrass her.
Okay, so this officially has nothing to do with weather
No,
now.
I
This
just
is
when she talked about plastic, I'm like, you did go with the shower cap, didn't you?
No,
Okay.
no.
But it would be in order today because we do have that
It'd
much
be
rain
okay.
coming.
Okay,
That's
and this
all
is we've now transitioned into parenting advice with Janet and Craig. If you ever need to put your kid in their place, shower cap and flip flops to
Yes.
the pickup line.
Yeah, to the pick. Oh, that'll
Okay.
do it.
Honk the
That'll
horn
do
a
it.
little
If
bit.
you don't like what they have on, sometimes
Right.
you say, you wear it, so am I.
There it is. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh,
This
my
is. I hope
goodness.
everyone's writing this down.
I
You
know.
cannot get this advice anywhere else.
For the record, her children are perfectly adjusted and they're doing well. So I just wanted to share that. So,
Thank you.
Janet, always a pleasure.
Thanks, Janet. A celebrity guest appearance on our live
I
Impact News weather forecast
Love
today.
me some Janet Roach. Yeah. Long time, like 20 years ago, she and I anchored Daybreak. Once upon a time.
She told me that was a completely normal show.
Completely. Actually,
Yeah.
about 25 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, we played the image thing the other day.
Oh, my
Yes,
goodness.
she said no shenanigans whatsoever. You and LaSalle were very, very normal.
Very.
Yeah.
It was a well-adjusted show as well.
Yes.
All right, real quick, you guys got the rainfall estimates up going forward. Temperatures falling from the mid-50s, rain heavy at times. We've already seen it. It's going to be more moderate now and then lighter later this afternoon. Skies are gradually going to clear overnight. Remember, there might be a couple of bay effect flurries early tomorrow morning, mainly areas south and southeast of the bay. So I would say it's more likely Virginia Beach than, say, Suffolk, those areas. If we had a cold northeast wind, it would blow back out to the west.
Okay.
But because the winds are coming in from the north-northwest, it'll be mainly like Norfolk over to Virginia Beach if we see anything. Not a guarantee, but a chance. All right, 45, mostly sunny tomorrow. After that, temperatures will be warming up a bit. Back to 52 on Thursday, mostly sunny. Another chance for wet weather coming up later Friday and into Saturday. Now, if you guys have a stomach for it, I can give you guys a quick bonus on that Friday thing because you guys see what we have there. We have this maybe a winter mix
We
inland.
see the question mark.
Let me show you just
Yep.
very quickly the two models here. This is the GFS going forward. You can see that's our rain today, goes away. Now we're looking forward to next Friday. And okay, well, I'm not seeing anything looking too scary there. The GFS says rain moves in late Friday. Not a big deal. Okay, that's the GFS. Now, look at the Euro. Same kind of outlook towards Friday. You see the rain moving out. I'm zooming in on the Euro because the Euro has a little different story coming up early Friday. You see some snow showers showing up around Roanoke Rapids to Emporia as we get into the midday Friday. This model is projecting some mixing up across Newport News, back over towards parts of Hampton and up through York, maybe some snow for Williamsburg, Franklin, Emporia. Again, two models, different scenarios. Rain in Virginia Beach, mostly rain for Norfolk, maybe a little bit of mix across Portsmouth and western Chesapeake before changing back over to rain. And then you see how it becomes a rain thing and moves out. So neither one of these going crazy, but if the Euro turns out to be correct, and the U.S., the GFS model is wrong, which sometimes that does happen, okay? So if the Euro is correct and the GFS is wrong, we may well have a little bit of wintry weather to talk about there early Friday. It's too early to say for sure. We're going to be watching that. What I can tell you is that Saturday morning, both the models kind of bring that rain out, And that's a good thing because Saturday evening we have the lighted boat parade. And that's an event that I'm going to be hosting to support the Virginia Emergency Rescue Squad, Virginia Beach. They are so great, the volunteer rescue squads, and that's a great time out at the Lesnar. So whatever happens Friday into early Saturday, we want that rain gone so everybody can enjoy the lighted boat parade.
And this is Chick's Oyster Bar on Shore Drive. And what can people expect if they come out to this
So
event?
the boaters or the captains of these vessels, and they range in size. Some of the vessels are smaller. Some of them are massive. One of them always decorates a barge and kind of tows a barge behind the boat. I mean, it's incredible. They come out and they deck these things out. They pick different themes and they do holiday themes. Sometimes you might have a Grinch on one or the Bumble on one from Rudolph's, Santa Claus is coming to town or whatever. You have different themes, and it's a big party out there, and it's a chance. If you've got little ones, you're going to love seeing the boats all lit up. It's a lot of fun out there. And again, all the proceeds, there are ticket sales, there are different donations around it, sponsors for viewing from inside Chick's Oyster Bar. And I don't know if tickets are still available. I'm sure there's a website we can find for somebody on that.
Yeah.
But anyway, the proceeds that are all raised from that go towards supporting VB Rescue, and it is awesome. Now, there are other places that you can see it outside of Chick's Oyster Bar where you can see the lighted boat parade for free, and I'd encourage you to do that too. If you're unable to get tickets or that doesn't work out, you can just come on out and check out the lights because they come parading down the Lynn Haven and turn around, and then they head back up the river. So really cool stuff.
And just from a very quick Google search, I've got vbboatparade.com here.
There you go.
And if you go to vbboatparade.com, eventually you can end up finding some tickets through that website. So if you want to still find tickets, and it looks like they're still available based on what I'm seeing here, but I won't click all the way through the process here. But vbboatparade.com if you want to hang out with Craig Moeller, if you want a little bit more of what you're seeing here on Live Impact News.
Hopefully there are reasons other than wanting to hang out with Craig Moeller for going out there.
Yes.
But we are going to be out there, and it is so much fun, and I always love to say hi to everybody that comes out.
Okay, fantastic. Awesome. We always love to say hi to you here on Live Impact News. A big weather day, a weather impact alert day, an extra mention to everyone watching to be safe and be careful out there. We've already heard from Janet. We've already heard from Naya that there is, in fact, some real hazards on the road out there. There is flooding that is happening, ponding, and, of course, just general rainfall and puddles that are splashing up into your windshield. So be careful. Leave a little early if you need to get somewhere
And again,
today.
the good news, the late afternoon commute, the ride home will be better. So if you've got plans or if you've got to maybe run out to the store and you don't have to do it right now, put it off until later this afternoon. The conditions will be better across the area.
That's right. Target's not going anywhere.
Target's not going anywhere. The grocery store will still be there when you go out later this afternoon.
And they'll still have some ripe avocados. Don't worry. They're constantly
might be more
refilling
ripe.
those things. They might be even riper
Yeah,
by definition of the time past. Okay.
Yeah.
Quite a forecast here. We have a weather impact alert day. We had a celebrity guest appearance from Janet Roach. And you and I officially have an NFL playoffs agreement, if you will.
Yes.
Okay.
And the number one seed right now?
The number one seed right now, go ahead.
The Bears. Yes.
Yeah, Chicago Bears, the number
down.
one seed in the NFC
They look
after
hot.
taking down the Philadelphia Eagles. And then in Philly, Coach Ben Johnson celebrating in our locker room by taking his shirt off so that the city of Chicago gets free hot dogs.
Free hot dogs from the Wieners.
Insane.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. The
Good
city
stuff.
of Chicago
Hey,
is on
and
fire.
for the record, I'm not getting out over ahead of my skis,
Okay.
but I do think the Bears are pretty legit. So we'll throw a hot dog on this.
We'll throw a hot
playoff
dog on
run.
it, and we'll share it right here on Live Impact News once this is all done and decided. All right, Craig, you're the man. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We really appreciate it. Anything else we need to know?
I think we're good. Just be careful out there on the roads.
Okay, be careful out there on the roads. The final words from Craig Moeller here on this Tuesday, a weather impact alert day here on 13 News Now. Now, elsewhere on 13 News Now Plus, you can always find weather updates constantly, 24/7. Our team is making sure that you're informed about what to expect when you head outside on any given day, but especially today in this weather impact alert. Okay, we have 2 live events happening right now. Nia Campbell already has them pulled up and ready to go. Up on the top of your screen, we'll be hearing from Republican leaders at some point today. At some point here very soon, we expect. This will be the House GOP holding a press conference here in Washington, D.C. And then on the bottom of your screen, sort of the flip side, House Democratic leadership will be holding a news conference of their own. We are waiting for both of those to start. Now, you can see, based on the images there, that we expect the Republican press conference to start much earlier. The press seems largely assembled at the House Republican press conference, whereas the House Democratic press conference still waiting for people to start trickling in. So whichever one of those goes live first, we will head immediately out to that event so that you can hear from leaders on, we don't have a specific, we know it's a press conference. We don't have any specific topic they'll be touching on. It's possible that they will be touching on this Russia-Ukraine conflict that continues to rage on, but one that the White House says it's very optimistic about the future of, about the possibility of finding a deal, of reaching a ceasefire. There is a special envoy with Steve Witkoff heading to Moscow, in Moscow already, actually meeting today, a meeting that was scheduled for about 9 a.m. our time at the Kremlin. So if the schedule holds to our reporting here on abcnews.com, that's a meeting that has already begun. Again, that's featuring Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, who has been a part of these negotiations for some time, and Russian President Vladimir Putin, who obviously is one of the people who is sort of most powerful in deciding where this conflict goes. But there is another representative for the United States, if you will, or another person who's just involved in this particular negotiation, and that is President Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner is expected to take part in the meeting between Steve Witkoff and Vladimir Putin at the Kremlin today, a meeting that we believe has already begun based on our reporting. So an added wrinkle there. Other top officials, including Kushner and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, met on Sunday in Florida 2 days ago with a Ukrainian delegation in an attempt to find a deal that both nations might accept to end the war. So that is one of the major headlines of the day. It's one that we will keep an eye on. If we get any news of the results of that meeting or the content of that meeting over the course of our time here on our live stream, we'll bring them to you as soon as we get them. For now, it looks like House Republican leaders have taken to the podium. So let's head out to Washington, D.C. live right now.
Just before Thanksgiving, our National Guard was attacked on American streets, and so was our nation's generosity, compassion, and sense of security. It was wrong. It will always be wrong. So please join me in praying for the families, first responders, and every guardsman still in our capital today. Now, to the work before us in the House. Millions of Americans just returned from Thanksgiving on a holiday where they watched get more expensive every year under Joe Biden. His policies sent prices on gas, groceries, and everyday essentials through the roof. While things aren't fully back to normal, families are finally feeling relief this year because of the Republican affordability agenda. Thanksgiving costs were down 5% this year. Turkey dropped 16%, and gas prices hit a 4-year low, making it easier for families to gather. But we're not done. This week, House Republicans are taking direct aim at Washington's red tape that is crushing small businesses and draining household budgets. So think of this. Small businesses now pay nearly $14,700 per employee just to comply with federal rules. Meanwhile, families lose more than $16,000 a year to hidden regulatory taxes. And that's just unacceptable. So House Republicans are acting. on our affordability agenda will move forward with the Dump Red Tape Act and the Small Business Regulatory Reduction Act. These are real reforms to roll back Washington's overreach and put power back where it belongs. The power needs to be with the workers, with the families, and with the job creators, not with the government. Democrats created this affordability crisis. They buried families under regulations, spent trillions on pet projects, and siphoned off Americans' hard-earned money to appease their radical base. We're not letting that stand. House Republicans are actually cleaning up Bidenomics. We're ending Biden inflation and restoring an America that working families can afford to thrive again. Thank you. Mr. Nunn.
Hey, thank you very much, Chairwoman. This week we're going to be running some very important legislation, particularly dealing with the Communist Party of China. I'm so thankful for our leadership team standing up to this. And let me tell you a little bit about what's happening in the heart of the heartland, right here in Iowa. Look, I started off my career as a counterintelligence officer for 20 years. I worked directly inside China, and we saw what Communist China brought to the United States, not just in the buying of farmland, but literally sending agents to my district and pulling corn seed out of the ground so they could replicate it back home. But now they're not just growing or coming after what we grow in our fields, they're coming after what we grow in our classrooms. Most recently, a group from Des Moines Public Schools was taken on an all-expense-paid trip to be inside China. But the Chinese weren't there under the facade of friendship. They were there to collect information, to exploit, and to manipulate. They forced these kids to hand over their digital information, required them to use WeChat, an internal public server for China, started an early process of cultivation, and in the counterespionage world, we consider this source recruitment. Consistently, I've had parents across Iowa say, how is this allowed to happen? And the simple truth is, there's no law preventing it. The Chinese government is creating a series of shell organizations to recruit kids to come to China and then exploit them the moment they set down in soil inside Beijing. This has to stop. And I'm so proud of this team for helping us stand up to what the Politburo in Beijing is trying to do to kids in Des Moines, Iowa, and across our country. We have the opportunity not only to push back, but to send a strong signal that we have a friendship opportunity with China that is real, but we will not stand by while Chinese communist agents attempt to recruit kids for future exploitation. Whether it's in ag or whether it's in the classroom, we have the opportunity to say no. And this team has stood up to do it. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for your leadership. Thank you.
$1 billion. That's how much money has been stolen from the hardworking taxpayers in my home state of Minnesota. And if that's not egregious enough, some of these taxpayer dollars have allegedly been diverted to al-Shabaab terrorists. Under the failed leadership of Tim Walz, Minnesota has become a hotbed for fraud. We knew it was bad, but now, thanks to the work of our new U.S. Attorney for Minnesota, the true size and scope of the crimes is being brought to light, finally. $250 million in the feeding our children scandal. The largest pandemic fraud case, by the way, in the country. 14 million robbed by a woman who fraudulently diagnosed Somali children with autism, then billed the taxpayer for the services that were never provided. Over 5 million stolen by individuals falsely claiming to provide housing assistance to those in need. These are just some of the fraud schemes that have been federally charged, and I want to emphasize that because our failed governor tried to claim that he's been prosecuting. He hasn't even investigated. There are even more, by the way, that are under investigation, including 80 autism clinics that are currently under investigation. Career fraud prosecutor and former acting U.S. Attorney for Minnesota, Joe Thompson, said the amount of fraud, quote, takes my breath away. Even the New York Times admitted that the fraud in Minnesota is, quote, staggering in its scale and its brazenness. Between the meals, housing, and autism therapy fraud cases, 86 people have been charged. Of those 86, 78 are of Somali descent. Let me be clear, it is not racist to call out criminal behavior. And we're going to not cower to baseless labels while Minnesotans, including law-abiding Somali Americans, get robbed blind. While Tim Walz refuses to take accountability for the fraud he created and enabled, President Trump is committed to justice for the crimes against the taxpayers of Minnesota, and I am too. I want to thank Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent for launching an investigation into this important issue. Minnesotans deserve answers and accountability, and we're not going to rest until they get both. And thank God for President Trump raising this, because no one was covering it. We've been sounding the alarm on this fraud for over 3 years. No one in this room and no one back at home was reporting how bad this is. Finally, because of our president raising the issue, people are talking about it. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention before I left what our conference chair talked about when we started. My wife Jackie and I are praying for the family of Sarah Bergstrom as they grieve this infuriating and unfathomable loss. We're also praying for Andrew Wolf as he continues to fight for his life. These two guardsmen are heroes who answered the call to keep this city safe. Justice must be executed swiftly for this heinous and targeted act. And with that, I yield to the leader.
Thank you, Whip. Our country was shocked the day before Thanksgiving to see just a senseless, violent act of this tragedy attack on our National Guardsmen here in D.C., the West Virginia National Guardsmen that were both attacked for just doing their jobs and keeping D.C. safe. I, too, want to extend my prayers and sympathy to Sarah Bergstrom's family for the horrible loss of her life and just senseless loss of life for such a young girl with great promise. And then, of course, Andrew Wolf, who is still at the hospital fighting for his life from the gunshot wounds that he suffered. And we keep him in our prayers, his family as well, and pray that he is able to recover and come back. And I know the people of West Virginia share that. The people of America share those prayers. This week we have a number of bills we're bringing to the floor to continue to address some of the problems that were created by the Biden administration that drove up inflation, that drove up higher costs. We saw so many ridiculous rules and regulations that added cost to the products we buy, our small businesses that were under attack. And so this week we're bringing a number of bills to reduce those regulatory attacks on small businesses. Giving small businesses relief also gives families relief in terms of lower costs. We're going to bring more bills that came out of the Education Committee to take on what is happening in our universities and our schools, where the Chinese Communist Party tries to move Confucius Institutes into our schools, teaching our children, trying to put communist ideas into our children in our schools. And so we're going to continue to have more transparency and prohibit that kind of money coming in from China to our schools. We're bringing the SCORE Act to give some structure. Over the years, you've seen lawsuits erode the ability for the NCAA to even police college athletics, to the point where now it's the wild, wild west. There are no rules in place, no structure. You have people that can play until they're 26 years old in college athletics. You don't have any protections for a lot of the student athletes. And so we first restore the ability for policing through the NCAA. Congress won't be doing the regulations. It will be the NCAA having the ability to police college athletics again. We also protect women's sports. We protect Olympic sports by ensuring that you have an equal number of women's sports to men's sports, that you have a minimum number of sports, so that a lot of the Olympic sports that are so important to our country, as we see the Olympics coming up here again. In many cases, our Olympians come from the college ranks, and so we protect that too. And again, just putting structure in place for what is right now wild, wild west atmosphere. And we're going to continue to work on health care proposals to ensure that families have choices and lower premiums. That's what Republicans care about. Democrats have never cared about that since they passed the Affordable Care Act and all the broken promises and lies that went with it. If you like what you have, you can keep it. Probably the most broken promise in all of politics, where millions of families lost the good health care plans that they liked because of the Affordable Care Act. And of course, there's nothing affordable about the Affordable Care Act. All we've seen is increased cost, 80% premium increases. Democrats just concerned about bailing out insurance companies who get record profits while families see higher premiums because of that failed law. What we want to do is give families options, lower premiums for families. And again, we've brought some bills to the floor already. We're going to keep bringing bills to the floor to do those two things, to lower premiums for families and give them options so that they can get what's best for their families. They don't have to be enforced into a plan that the government tells them they have to be in that's too expensive for them and doesn't work for their family. They can buy whatever they want that makes sense for them and for their family. So we're going to continue to work on that too as we move an aggressive agenda, and that agenda is led by our Speaker, Mike Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Leader, this leadership team, Colonel Nunn, for being here with us this morning. There is a lot going on, and we want to give you some updates on things. I hope everybody had a blessed Thanksgiving. It is true that our hearts were heavy, of course, with Sarah and Andrew, these two selfless National Guardsmen who were senselessly attacked while they volunteered for service to defend the rest of their fellow Americans, and they literally took bullets for it. And so our prayers are with Andrew as he recovers, and our hearts and prayers are with the family of Sarah. It reminds us that freedom isn't free, and some people make the ultimate sacrifice so the rest of us can have that. You know, I was reminding our conference this morning, 1789, our first president, George Washington, was the first to issue a national day of Thanksgiving and prayer, a proclamation. And he declared that because the Congress requested it of him. And of course, Washington was the first and best person to do that, to start the tradition. And he wrote famously in his proclamation, he said, it is the duty of all of us, it is our duty to acknowledge the blessings of God, to be grateful for what he's done for our country and all of us individually, and to humbly implore his protection and favor. It's never been more important to do that, and it's a great reminder. Thanksgiving is a uniquely American holiday, as we know, and it's a great time to sit around the table and be reminded of those blessings, and chief among them is the freedom that we enjoy. And we do not take that for granted. So it's proper, appropriate for us to acknowledge those sacrifices. Now, there's a lot going on across the country. There's a special election in Tennessee today, you may have heard. Tennessee's 7th District. I spent all day there yesterday. I think it was 10 hours and 12 events, I think. I was with Matt Van Epps, our Republican extraordinary candidate for the seat there that is open and will be filled today in the election. He's running against someone who truly is, by any objective measure, a real radical. She famously said that she hates Nashville, which is the largest city in the district, which is kind of an interesting campaign strategy, and hates country music. You know, it's Tennessee. So Matt Van Epps is an extraordinary candidate by contrast. He is a lieutenant colonel in the Tennessee Army National Guard. He's a combat veteran. He flew combat missions, deployed 8 times over to the Middle East, and dodged missiles and bullets for his country. He worked in Tennessee state government and is a highly capable, competent, calm, common sense conservative. He's exactly what that district needs. We're excited for him, devoted husband and father, America First patriot. So hey, if you're in Tennessee's 7th District, Nashville, and 14 counties, go vote today. It matters. Special elections are strange animals, and anything can happen. And when you're in a deep red district, sometimes people assume that the conservative will win, and you cannot assume that because anything can happen. So we encourage everybody to go out there and make that happen. The people are fired up. I was there and really enjoyed the energy there. We're going to see that across the country next week as we go into this very important midterm election next year. I mean, in all the weeks ahead. And as we go into that election, remembering, again, how important all of this is. And as we put some posters up here to remind you and remind all of ourselves what an extraordinary run we've had in the 119th Congress. Now, in spite of the fact that we had razor-thin majority, I mean, it many times, as you know, 1 or 2 vote margin, we still have had one of the most consequential Congresses in the great history of this extraordinary nation. And if you look at what has been accomplished for the first 10 months of this term, this year, the 119th Congress, this new administration, you could stack that up against any Congress in history. I think it's probably in the top 5 in terms of marquee landmark achievements. And, part of our, both a blessing and a curse, is we did so much of it in the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Working Families Tax Cut. There's so much to talk about. It's as if it just got brushed aside. But the component pieces of that is some of the most nation-shaping, productive, pro-growth policies that have ever occurred to help all Americans. And we look forward to all the provisions of that bill being implemented beginning really in earnest in the first part of the year. And so the first quarter, second quarter will be a very different scenario. But we're excited to go through that. We can't fix everything overnight. And the Biden-Harris administration, as we said so many times, in 4 years really destroyed almost every metric of public policy. Don't go flip a switch to do that. It takes some time. And we've been working earnestly and around the clock to do that, to work on solutions, to solve all those problems, and to make government more efficient and effective and responsive. Republicans have been delivering and working to bring down costs for American families, to fix the Democrats' broken health care system, and to rid our streets of violent criminals and dangerous illegal aliens. All this has been our goal since January, and we've been delivering. And as the year comes to an end, we started to reflect upon what we've done in that first 10 months and ultimately the first 12 months, and it's really something. The Working Families Tax Cut, let me just tell you some of the components of that, because people seem to have forgotten. It was a permanent extension of the 2017 tax cuts, which is collectively, it's the biggest tax cut in U.S. history. Had we not passed the big bill, we would have had a $5 trillion tax increase on all hardworking American families as that expired in December. It was a marquee achievement. We also, in that, included permanent estate tax relief extensions. We had landmark Medicaid program reforms, which the CBO has said is going to save $185 billion and reduce premiums on everybody for their health care. We expanded the SNAP work requirements to get ineligible recipients off, young able-bodied men with no dependents or health problems. They shouldn't be riding the wagon, and they won't anymore. In the bill, we increased border enforcement and funding, generational investment in those things, and it's worked, because guess what? The border is sealed. We don't have all these illegals coming across the border anymore. We included no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, increased standard deduction for seniors, free tax savings accounts for every child born in America, which will be announcing at the White House in an event this afternoon. Business tax provisions to incentivize investments and innovation. That's all in the bill and much more. We codified 67 of President Trump's America First executive orders so far, and there are many more to come. We repealed Biden-era regulations with 23 Congressional Review Act resolutions. Now, this is important, too. We've been making history along the way over the last 10 months. In the entire time that CRAs, Congressional Review Acts, have been part of the law, only 20 had been signed into law since the inception of that instrument. This year alone, we have already passed 23 of those out of the House, and 16 of those have been signed into law. That's a big thing. We've restored regular order to the appropriations process, and y'all know how what a big thing that was. The goal of mine since I became Speaker a little over 2 years ago was to restore regular order, because instead of governing by an
Okay, we let you know that while the Republican House members' press conference was ongoing, the Democratic House members were getting ready to set their press conference up. Both of them are now happening concurrently. We've been listening in on the Republican Party for some time now, so we want to take a listen in to Democratic House members as they make their statement, and going forward, we'll look to strike an appropriate balance between the two for as long as they are both happening simultaneously. For now, we're going to switch over to the Democratic House members' press conference, as we've spent some time with the Republican House members' press conference thus far this morning. Let's stay live in D.C., but down the hall to the Democratic House press conference.
One of the many broken promises from this president. The Republican economic policies have only made this worse. On top of the cost of living crisis, Americans are on the brink of losing access to quality and affordable health care if Republicans allow the affordable care tax credits to expire. There is no time to waste. We have a discharge petition that is active, that has Democratic support. That is the only path to deliver the health care certainty and stability that Americans need. We heard during the shutdown from dozens of Republicans who gave public statements saying that they supported the Affordable Care Act tax credits to their constituents. This is their opportunity to make that right. This is their opportunity to stand up for health care, to stand up for their constituents, and to stand up to Speaker Johnson and Donald Trump, who are willing to let these tax credits expire to hurt the American people. This is the only real solution, and Republicans should take it before it's too late. Now I'll turn it over to Vice Chair Ted Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar. I also want to add my sincere condolences to the family of Sarah Beckstrom, the National Guard soldier senselessly killed last week. And I also pray that Andrew Wolf, the other National Guard soldier fighting for his life, pulls through. As Chairman Aguilar has said, we have an affordability crisis. That's one reason Donald Trump is polling at the lowest level ever for a modern-day president at this point in a term, only 36% approval, over 60% disapproval. And for folks who shopped on Black Friday, last Friday, according to Salesforce, average prices across all products increased 7%. And then specifically for household goods, prices increased 24%. Things like furniture, appliances, dining, and decor all skyrocketed. And what is Donald Trump doing? He wants to make sure his Great Gatsby ballroom is as big as it can be. Trump and his rubber stamp Republicans are not focusing on the affordability crisis, and now we have healthcare costs skyrocketing. And if we don't extend the ACA tax credits, it's going to mean that millions of Americans are either going to lose health insurance or pay a lot more for the healthcare premiums. Now I'd like to talk about war crimes. Last week, Secretary Hegseth lied and denied media reports that the U.S. military ordered a second strike on defenseless shipwrecked survivors. Then yesterday, both the White House and Hegseth said actually it was Admiral Bradley who ordered the second strike. I served on active duty as a JAG for 4 years and then an additional 21 years in the reserves. And let me be very clear, killing shipwrecked survivors is a war crime. The Pentagon's own Department of Defense law manual on the law of war literally says that, quote, orders to fire upon the shipwrecked will be clearly illegal. The Department of Justice must conduct an investigation into the war crime and hold all those accountable, including Secretary Hegseth. He allegedly said, quote, kill them all. If the Trump administration does not hold the people accountable, I guarantee you a future administration will do so, because there is no statute of limitations for war crimes. And now I have a message for the members of the United States military. Thank you for your service to our great nation. And for those of us who served, we know that we all followed a code of conduct. And part of that code of conduct is to not lie and to accept responsibility. Unfortunately, the head of the Department of Defense, Secretary Hegseth, engaged in dishonorable conduct. He stated on national TV, quote, I watched it live. We knew exactly who was in that boat. And instead of accepting responsibility for what happened, Hegseth chose to throw Admiral Bradley under the bus. Shame on Pete Hegseth. He is a coward. He must resign. You deserve better.
Questions? Michael.
That some of the affordability sirens that you all have sounded are a little bit hyperbolic, are a little bit, kind of overblown. What's your reaction to the White House? Kevin Hassett was on the Sunday shows this weekend. What's your message to the White House, who's saying, look at the consumer spending numbers. Look at how Americans are continuing to spend money, and that's an indicator that, again, some of what Democrats are saying, is kind of, overblown.
People waiting in line to get a deal doesn't necessarily mean we have a soaring and roaring economy. It means people are looking for a deal. And so the only way we truly know what the economy looks like is, look, our members of Congress are out in our districts, we're out in our community, we see it, we talk to our friends and neighbors, and we hear from them the affordability crisis that they're in. We hear direct stories from them on their healthcare premiums doubling and getting notices and having to think about whether they're going to go without healthcare for the next year if these premium increases stay. That's what we hear. So, but look, in communities all across the country, people, Black Friday is a tradition to go wait in line and to try to get a deal to try to get ahead on the Christmas shopping. But Kevin Hassett is in the White House is just continuing to perpetuate lies if they use one anecdote as a reason to call for a good economy. One of the things that they can do and that they can control, though, is they can produce real data. They can fund the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They can fund agencies that give us good data so we have an understanding of what is happening with the economy. They don't want to do that. Because they know that the tariffs that they've imposed on Americans are crushing people, and they know that those costs are thousands of dollars that people will face this holiday season as a result of Trump's reckless economic policies.
I find it really funny Republicans are making that argument about Black Friday setting records. The reason it set records is because prices increased. That's why, because people are paying more and getting less. And that's why we see consumer sentiment surveys that shows that consumer sentiment has been rapidly dropping. Polls after polls show that American people know that affordability is a crisis, and they want Trump and Republicans to do something about it instead of focus on stupid things.
Yeah, we'll get to Tyler, but just one last point. None of the bills, Michael, it's a fair question, none of what we're saying on the House floor, comes back to addressing, this issue. If Republicans were so confident that the economy is in the right place, that the American people feel good, they talk in their morning meetings about wanting to address the affordability crisis. They have an opportunity every week here to put up meaningful bills that address that. We don't have that this week. We haven't had that in months, and their only solution is to do whatever the president asks them to do.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. A question for both you and maybe a little more for Vice Chair Lewis, as you discussed Secretary Hegseth in your opening statement. But is impeachment for the defense secretary, is that something that should be on the table, and would you guys potentially support that right now, especially if the facts regarding this alleged follow-on strike on the shipwreck are borne out?
Yeah, let's not draw the conclusion before we hear the evidence. I appreciate that both Senate majority and minority members, as well as House Armed Services members, Chairman Rogers and Ranking Member Smith, indicated that they want a full accountability to what's happening in Venezuela, especially with the strike, as the Vice Chair mentioned. That's where this should start. Look, Republicans are not going to impeach Pete Hegseth. We feel he should resign. The Vice Chair said that multiple times from this podium. I've said he's the most unqualified Secretary of Defense that we've ever had in this country. So that's how we personally feel. But when it comes to the evidence and the accountability and the oversight, let's go through that process. But members of the military, need to tell the truth, as the Vice Chair said, and we need a full accounting of what happened on that day with that strike in particular, and whether there were crimes that were committed.
I agree with Chairman Aguilar that we need a full accounting to get all the facts first, but we already do know that Secretary Hegseth lied, as did Sean Parnell at the Department of Defense. He also lied. They denied the media reports last week. And then just yesterday, the White House and Hegseth himself confirmed, a second strike was ordered, and then they threw Admiral Bradley under the bus. That's what happened.
Kyle Maduro with the PBS NewsHour. When it comes to the expiration of the expanded ACA subsidies, how much are you constrained by what can get 60 votes in the Senate? And are you willing to compromise at all on the Democratic discharge petition in order to get a handful of House Republicans on board that you would need to successfully move a discharge petition?
Republicans have said that they want an extension, that they support the Affordable Care Act tax credits. We're giving them an opportunity to do that. That's what this discharge petition is about. As Leader Jeffries has said for months, Democrats will go anywhere and have any discussion with our Republican colleagues about addressing the Affordable Care Act tax credits or the affordability crisis. If Republicans want to have a conversation about solutions, we're all ears. What we're saying is we have a solution. We have a solution with more than 200 supporters. Work with us and let's address this. But right now, the Republican conference is in chaos. They haven't had a healthcare strategy ever. So we're not just going to sit around and wait for them to come up with 1 year, 3-year health savings account, all these things that they don't have consensus among themselves. They're in disarray and disagree with their own leadership on this. And it appears that Donald Trump might even disagree with them. Because before the holiday, he was willing to engage on this reportedly. So what we're saying is, look, we have a solution, we have a vehicle, we have an opportunity. Let's take this step, and then we can have conversations about what goes on in the Senate. I'm not a Senate expert, and so we're not pretending to be. We're trying to pass legislation out of this chamber.
Open to Congressman Fitzpatrick's framework if the details are released in the next week or so?
Look, we're open to solutions that deliver support for the American people. We have a viable solution with 200 supporters plus. If any member of the Republican Party has a solution with 200 supporters, we're willing to have a conversation. Maeve.
Thank you. Building off of that question, would you guys consider doing a separate discharge petition on a bipartisan basis for a different, proposal like the Fitzpatrick-Suozzi one?
Look, this is the vehicle that has 200 supporters. If there are people that show that they have 200 supportors on a piece of legislation, we're happy to engage and to talk. But what we're saying is this 3-year solution is the easiest, the cleanest, the most viable to move forward where we are now. We understand how to count votes. Catherine Clark is great at that. And so we're going to continue to follow the guidance of our members, but we want real solutions. We don't want talking points and working groups, so we want real solutions to the American people. The clock is ticking. The end of December is coming quickly, and people deserve relief. So that's what our proposal is focused on delivering.
And picking off of that, so are you open to a 2-year extension as opposed to a 3-year with reforms, which is what Suozzi and Fitzpatrick seem to be talking about right now, if they can show you that it can pass the Senate and get signed in the White House?
What we're saying is there's 200 plus Democrats on this discharge petition. If Republicans want to work with us on this, if they want to deliver for the American people, they have a real opportunity to do it. But don't just join a working group and put a press release out to your constituents saying you're willing to engage. Sign a discharge petition, force a vote. We're willing to have conversations with anybody, anytime, anywhere on the affordability crisis and specifically these tax credits, but they have had plenty of time. They have known that these tax credits were going to expire for years, and they chose to do nothing about it, including Congressman Fitzpatrick when he supported the big ugly law. And so Republicans have known that this crisis was coming. They chose to do nothing about it. So if they're truly serious about this, we have a proposal, we have a solution. Let's take that step, and then we can have conversations about what can be passed into law. But it's clear that the president is even open to this before Speaker Johnson got a hold of him. Thank you so much.
All right, back here in the Live Impact News studio after we heard from both House Republican members and House Democratic members. Now, there is something that we're waiting on that we want to flag here for everybody watching. There is a major event in regards to environmental structures very close to home for us here in Hampton Roads taking place today. The Chesapeake Executive Council will be holding its annual public meeting and press conference where they are expected to approve the revised Chesapeake Bay Watershed Agreement, which is going to establish goals and outcomes to guide the partnership through the next phase of Chesapeake Bay restoration. Few communities depend on the Chesapeake Bay more than ours here in Hampton Roads. We are monitoring that live event. As you can see here, this is something of an intro to the event itself that is playing, and so as soon as the actual press conference goes live, we will head out to that event so we can listen in on some of the updates and some of the changes that are coming to the Chesapeake Bay Watershed Agreement. In the meantime, we've got a little bit of time here in studio. I'm still reading through some different materials, some different resources on some of the things that we just heard, but let's go over something quickly here. We talked about yesterday and into today, and then it was touched on again in the Republican House Representatives press conference, the fraud cases in Minnesota. There have been some major arrests in a number of fraud cases, schemes to defraud multiple government programs that have happened in Minnesota. And you heard Republican representatives from the House talking about who is involved in those schemes. 86 individuals in connection with multiple massive fraud schemes. And they noted in that press conference that 78 of the defendants identified as Somali immigrants or of Somali descent. There obviously is a large Somali community in Minnesota, a community that has, at different times throughout the last decade, come under fire from President Donald Trump. He has attacked that community and their influence on Minnesota multiple times, and now you hear from House Republican leaders, 78 of the 86 individuals arrested in connection with those fraud schemes were of Somali descent or Somali immigrants. And after reading on KARE 11. KARE 11 is our sister station in Minnesota. They have reporting around this. They have been reporting on these fraud cases, but they also have information on their website about that community in general. Now, the Somali community began arriving in the 1990s to escape civil war in their country, and it has grown to at least 80,000 across the state, according to KARE 11. Again, our sister local news station in Minnesota. So 80,000 Somalis across the state of Minnesota. Just to add some context, when you hear that number that 78 Somali descendants or immigrants have been arrested as part of that fraud scheme, there are over 80,000 Somali residents in Minnesota or residents in Minnesota of Somali descent. So we just want to make sure that we add context where we can when it comes to some of the reporting around the situation that's happening in Minnesota right now. There have been massive arrests in cases of fraud in Minnesota, and that was touched on, but adding more context around who was arrested and the community at large that exists in that state. Now, there was a lot of talk in both press conferences, Republican and Democratic House members, about ACA tax premiums. We know that the government shutdown, the reason that the government did not reopen for 40 plus days, a record length amount of time, is because Democratic members of the House were pushing for an extension to Affordable Care Act tax premiums. They wanted that extension before they would agree to a funding bill that would reopen the government. Ultimately, Democratic members did not receive that extension, and enough members of the Democratic Party voted for the funding bill that it pushed through without an extension. So there is no extension, and yet the deadline continues to loom. At the end of December, at the end of this month, those tax credits will expire, which will lead to a massive increase on health insurance premiums for millions of Americans. It is something that became a hot button issue during the government shutdown. We heard about it on a near daily basis. While the government reopened, we seem to hear about it much less, and yet the issue has not gone away. And that deadline is still looming. Now, you did hear representatives talking about that deadline, Democratic representatives, right before we came back on air, saying they have made a proposal for an extension. They're waiting on negotiations from the Republican Party. The Republican members of the House sort of lauding the deals that they've made and how it positively impacts health insurance. So, again, it seems as though the two parties remain apart on this issue. But that does not change the fact that the deadline at the end of December remains in place that will impact the health insurance for millions of Americans. Premiums will skyrocket, and many will likely have to become uninsured. So it is a topic that we will continue to discuss here throughout the month on Live Impact News. And with those two updates, it appears as though, Nia, it looked like the press conference had begun. There was a gentleman at the podium speaking there, and yet we've gone back to sort of video here.
Yeah, it's just part of this little loop video that they have going on.
Okay.
I think they're just playing that as people come in and join the meeting.
Now, with that being the case, we do have sound from Senator Kelly yesterday on Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense. Now, that was another topic that has been touched upon in various press conferences here, which is Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and his involvement in strikes on small boats in the Caribbean. And really, well, let's dig into what this specific instance that we're talking about is. There was an incident in September in which one of those small vessels that allegedly contained drug smugglers or narco-terrorists was struck by an American mission. After that boat was struck, there were survivors remaining from that strike. It has been alleged that the order was given to kill those survivors. Okay? Now, it has been alleged that that was Pete Hegseth who gave that second order. However, Pete Hegseth has said that is not the case. He has said that Mitch Bradley, head of the United States Special Operations Command, he has said, the White House has also said that it was Mitch Bradley who ordered the second controversial strike on that vessel that killed remaining survivors. So that is currently the situation that we are in, with a very controversial moment from early September when it comes to strikes against these small vessels in the Caribbean. And Senator Kelly spoke about this issue yesterday, and we're going to listen in on what he had to say, and then we'll meet back here in the Live Impact News studio to dive back into the Chesapeake Bay Watershed press conference. For now, yesterday's press conference featuring Senator Kelly speaking about Secretary Pete Hegseth and the strikes on small vessels in the Caribbean, specifically from early September. One specific strike in which there was a second strike that allegedly killed any survivors of a first strike. Okay, let's listen in now.
Most of you guys are here. And thank you for taking the time. Let me get started. So, throughout his entire career, in business, reality TV, and politics, Donald Trump has had one and only one play: bullying his opponents into silence. He did it as a failed casino owner who bankrupted his properties and screwed over his contractors. He did it as a reality TV host known for firing people. And he's done it as president who tries every day to intimidate people with no regards for the rights or well-being of the American people. I'll say this for the guy: while he's never seemed to do much else right, for most of Donald Trump's career, bullying people has worked out for him. But not now. Because I won't let it happen. The American people won't let it happen. President Trump is trying to silence me, threatening to kill me for saying what is true. And he sent his Secretary of Defense after me. And it's not going to work. Here's how we got here. A week and a half ago, Senator Slotkin and I, along with others who also served in the military and the intelligence communities, we released a video with a simple message to service members that they must refuse illegal orders. Nothing was controversial about that. Everyone must follow the law. No one may break the law. This is pretty basic stuff. Seeing that video, here's how any other president would have responded. They would have said 2 words, of course. But that's not how this president responded. We've become so accustomed to Donald Trump's behavior that it is worth emphasizing. The President of the United States said that 2 U.S. senators and 4 members of the House of Representatives should be arrested, hanged, executed for something we said, for something that is true. My family knows the cost of political violence. My wife, Gabby, was shot in the head and nearly died while speaking with her constituents. The president should understand this too. He has been the target of political violence himself. The Speaker of the Minnesota House of Representatives, Melissa Hortman, and her husband were murdered in their home this year. The governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, had his house firebombed this year. Then Charlie Kirk was assassinated at Utah Valley University, a place I visited just a few weeks ago with Republican Senator John Curtis. Faced with a wave like this, every other president we have ever had in the history of this nation would have tried to heal the country. But we all know Donald Trump. He uses every single opportunity to divide us. And that's dangerous. The president's words carry tremendous weight. People listen to him. And he knows that. And that's exactly why he does what he does. He makes these threats to silence people. And if that doesn't work, he abuses his power to intimidate people. And with the consent of Republicans in the United States Senate, he has surrounded himself with people like the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who will do whatever he says with no question, no matter what. Trump and Hegseth, they care more about publicity than they do about the rule of law. That's how I ended up finding out via a tweet that the Secretary of Defense was ordering an investigation into me. The same Secretary of Defense who has, from the moment he was nominated, has been historically unqualified for this position. The same Secretary of Defense who is reported to have ordered a second strike to kill shipwreck survivors in the Caribbean. If there is anyone who needs to answer questions in public and under oath, it is Pete Hegseth. It's a dangerous moment for the United States of America when the president and his loyalists use every lever of power to silence United States senators for speaking up. But we all know that this isn't about me, and it's not about the others in that video. They're trying to send a message to retired service members, to government employees, to members of the military, to elected officials, and to all Americans who are thinking about speaking up. You better keep your mouth shut or else. This has been a singular focus of President Trump's second term. Not addressing costs, not creating jobs, intimidating people, and going after the people he views as his political opponents. He's done it to companies. You better write a check to build my ballroom, or I might not approve your merger. He's done it with universities. You better fire your president, or I'll pull your research funding. He's even done it to late night hosts. You better not make jokes that I do not like, or I'll get you taken off the air, and I'm going to take your company's broadcast license. And he does it every week with Republicans in the House and the Senate. You better toe the party line, or I'll make sure you never get reelected. Folks, this comes at a cost. And not only to American companies, colleges, and comedians. It damages every American's freedom of speech and the balance of powers that form the foundation of our democracy. Because when Republicans in Congress are too afraid to disagree with this president, it means that his bad ideas go unchallenged. He has slapped reckless tariffs on countries across the globe, skyrocketing the cost of everything from groceries to school supplies. Republicans historically, well, at least a year ago, they hated tariffs. But when it comes to voting to undo them, they are too afraid of Donald Trump. So Americans pay more for just about everything because of spineless politicians. It's the same with healthcare costs. There are Republicans in the House and the Senate who really want to do something to prevent these healthcare premiums from spiking for millions of Americans. The solutions are simple, but President Trump says he doesn't want to, so nothing happens. Nothing except a government shutdown. It goes on and on. The president has gone too far. Everybody needs to wake up. The occupant of the Oval Office is ignorant to the Constitution and has no regard for the rule of law. Trying to silence me, in proposing to court-martial me, in threatening to kill me, for fighting back when our democracy demands that we must fight back. President Trump has crossed the line. And this time, it's not going to work. I will not be intimidated by this president. I am not going to be silenced by this president or the people around him, because I've given too much in service to this country to back down to this guy. In 1991, when Donald Trump was driving the Taj Mahal casino into bankruptcy, I was getting shot at over Iraq and Kuwait. In 2001, after Donald Trump said that the collapse of the Twin Towers meant he now owned the tallest skyscraper in Manhattan, I was carrying flags honoring 9/11 victims into space on a rocket ship. In 2003, when Donald Trump was writing birthday greetings to the monster Jeffrey Epstein, I was the first on the scene to recover the bodies of my fellow astronauts who died when Space Shuttle Columbia exploded during re-entry. In 2011, when Trump was hosting a reality show and peddling conspiracy theories against President Barack Obama, I was sitting next to my wife's hospital bed as she recovered from a gunshot wound to the head. My point is this: I've been through a lot worse in service to my country. The president and Pete Hegseth are not going to silence me. They aren't going to keep me from speaking out, and they're not going to keep me from doing my job. Enough of the bullying, enough of the intimidation, enough of the threats, enough of your nonsense. Doesn't help anyone in our country afford their groceries or pay their medical bills, and it erodes the rights of every American. My job is to fight for them, to stand up for the Constitution, and nothing is going to stop me from doing my job. Thank you, and I'll take some questions. Hold on a second. Give me that folder there. Just sit this down here. Can you, I know it's Manu from CNN, but for everybody, just starting with you, just say who you are, what station.
The White House said today that Admiral Bradley gave the order for that second strike on the Venezuelan boat. They also said this was a lawful strike. Yesterday, you said the second strike could be a war crime. Do you think that Bradley committed a war?
Let me just start, Manu, by saying that there needs to be an investigation. We need to pull some of these members of DOD and the military into the armed services committees in the House and the Senate. That's what the White House is saying. I hope what has been reported is not accurate. I revere members of the United States Navy, especially special operators, Navy SEALs. These are the most highly trained, individuals in our military. I have deep, deep respect for them. So I hope what we are hearing is not accurate. I will say, though, as somebody who has sunk 2 ships myself, that folks in the military need to understand, the law of the sea, the Geneva Conventions, what the law says. And I'm concerned that if there were, in fact, as reported, survivors clinging to a damaged vessel, that could be, over a line. I hope it's not the case. I truly do.
Should Admiral Bradley resisted that order?
Again, I am, not sure of all the facts yet. I don't want to prejudge before we have all the information. I think it's important for there to be an investigation. The Inspectors General of DOD needs to investigate this. Unfortunately, an unqualified Secretary of Defense fired a bunch of them and got rid of a bunch of lawyers. Pete Hegseth, do I have a lot of confidence in DOD? Well, hopefully we have, Inspectors General there that will be doing an impartial investigation. I think we should wait for the results of those investigations.
Regarding this press conference, the investigation into your actions, have you spoken with DOD or DOJ or anyone? Have there been any conversations, any interviews yet?
Like I said in my remarks, I was notified of a potential court-martial through a tweet by the Secretary of Defense. Think about that for a second. How ludicrous is that? That's the only notification that we have received to date. And I think that says a lot about who Pete Hegseth is and what he cares about. He doesn't care about the law. He doesn't care about process. He doesn't care about accountability. He cares about views on his Twitter account. And that's a big problem. I want to ask you guys this question. Have you ever in the history of our country seen a less qualified or less professional Secretary of Defense? I cannot think of one.
Senator Kelly, Nathaniel Reed, Scripps News. Are you concerned about threats on your life? Have you stepped up your personal security and, of course, the security of your wife?
Hey, I'm no stranger. Gabby and I are no stranger to political violence. We get a lot of threats already. She continues to get threats. She gets threats on her life, more so today because what Donald Trump said about me 10 days ago, that I should be hanged, that I should be executed. The threats on us have obviously gone up. I'm not going to get into details about my personal security. We take these threats very seriously, and I take, the threats from this president seriously. How many times in our country's history have you heard a president of the United States say that members of the Senate and the House should be hanged and executed? I mean, I can't think of one. Those words carry a lot of weight. The number of threatening calls that we get into our office have skyrocketed. And they were very graphic. I mean, some of them were put, not from my office, but another member put them out there for people to hear. The ones we get are worse than that. So I take this seriously, but again, that's why he does these things, because he thinks he can shut me up. I have First Amendment rights. I'm a United States Senator. I am doing my job. I'm on the Armed Services and the Intelligence Committee. He ain't going to shut me up. I mean, he intimidates other people. I'm not intimidated by Donald Trump or Pete Hegseth or anybody else.
Thank you, Senator. Nicole Killian with CBS News. Are you aware, just back on Venezuela, are you aware of whether or not the Secretary has had, and Secretary Hegseth, that is, if he's had any conversations with any members of the Armed Services Committee, and in terms of these calls to investigate, do you believe the Secretary and Admiral Bradley should appear before the Armed Services?
They absolutely should appear. I've talked to the chairman of Armed Services about it and the ranking member. They should absolutely appear. I'm not so confident they will. This is not an administration that
All right, back here in the Live Impact News studio, Senator Mark Kelly, talking for some time there, taking questions and answers as well. Let's touch on a couple things as that video has frozen. We're still waiting for our Chesapeake Bay press conference to start. I want to clarify what I said earlier. I want to make sure I say it in the most accurate, clear, and concise way possible. We talked about the alleged actions of Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth in regards to a September 2nd operation on a suspected drug boat in the Caribbean. Now, according to the Washington Post, Secretary Hegseth allegedly gave a spoken order ahead of the September 2nd operation to kill everybody aboard the suspected drug boat. After an initial strike left 2 survivors, Admiral Mitch Bradley, who was in charge of the operation, who we mentioned earlier, complied with Hegseth's alleged order by ordering a second strike, according to the report. So that is the clearest way that we can describe what happened, that we can relay the reporting around what happened. It was an alleged spoken order ahead of the September 2nd operation to kill everybody aboard the suspected drug boat from Hegseth. After an initial strike left 2 survivors, Admiral Mitch Bradley, in charge of the operation, complied with Hegseth's alleged order by ordering a second strike, according to the report. So we wanted to make sure that there was all and any added context that we could. Secretary Hegseth has said in a post on social media, "Let's make one thing crystal clear. Admiral Mitch Bradley is an American hero, a true professional, and has my 100% support. I stand by him and the combat decisions he has made on the September 2nd mission and all others since." That was a social media post from Secretary Hegseth about Admiral Mitch Bradley. That came on Monday night, so last night that came from Secretary Hegseth's social media account. The White House claims that it was Mitch Bradley who ordered a second controversial strike on an alleged boat in September, which is similar to the reporting from the Washington Post, essentially the same thing, with the added information that Secretary Hegseth allegedly gave a spoken order ahead of the September 2nd operation to kill everybody aboard the suspected drug boat. And so Admiral Mitch Bradley then ordered the second strike, allegedly to comply with Hegseth's alleged spoken word orders. So, again, that is the situation. It has been in the headlines. The story has received a massive amount of attention, and we're just trying to make sure that we have as much clear reporting about it as we can. The most recent statement from the Washington Post, of course, included in that. Now, let's talk a little bit about Senator Mark Kelly, the gentleman who you just saw speaking in that press conference. Senator Kelly is a decorated combat veteran. He noted some of his experience in the armed forces. He also is a former astronaut. And he was a part of a video with several other Democrats last month that said U.S. service members could refuse illegal orders. right? He was a part of that video. And, we heard him talk about how he won't be silenced by President Donald Trump and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. But the Department of Defense, that could be in reference to the fact that the Department of Defense announced last week it would be launching a thorough review of Kelly, citing serious allegations of misconduct, which of course came after he was a part of the video, saying that U.S. service members could refuse illegal orders, along with other Democrats. So again, a complicated situation. I hope that I'm relaying this in the most sort of easily digestible manner possible. Hopefully that the way we're going about reporting this is helpful and adds context and information to a complicated story that is still developing as we speak, as evidenced by Senator Kelly at the podium talking about it today, continuing to try and state his position when it comes to this story. Now, other things that we have that we're monitoring right now. We talked a lot yesterday about the Brian Walsh trial. Brian Walsh stands accused of murdering and dismembering his wife in 2023. Brian Walsh is on trial in Massachusetts for those crimes, and we listened in quite a bit on the opening statements yesterday. That trial is ongoing right now. We're still waiting for the Executive Council meeting on the Chesapeake Bay Watershed Agreement to start up. We thought it would start around 11:15. They're still getting things going. We're still waiting on that to get started. And so I wonder here, Naya, we do have more of Mark Kelly's question and answer, but we did listen to a good portion of his statement overall. We also have another live look in the courthouse of the Brian Walsh trial. What do you say, Naya? Should we continue with the Brian Walsh trial since we dove into it so much yesterday?
Yeah, I think we can continue. I think this is a witness on the stand, what I'm seeing, so
Okay.
we can listen in.
Okay, let's go back out to Massachusetts, day 2 of the Brian Walsh trial, and we'll continue to monitor everything live in here while you listen in on the case.
Digital evidence, we created a case number for it.
What was that case number?
2023-003.
Then what happened?
With the devices themselves?
Before you looked at the devices themselves.
Yeah. So obviously we had all these devices. We had to write search warrants. And once the search warrants were signed, then we were able to process the digital items.
So you wrote search warrants for the contents of the devices?
That's correct.
And when were those search warrants signed for the contents of the devices?
January 10th of 2023.
I now want to show you photographs and ask if you can identify, well, I want to show you those so that you can identify them for the jury. Looking at what's been marked as Exhibit 69. What is this?
So this is the black iPhone SE. On the back is our label that we created. It says 2023-0003, it's an extra zero. _1, showing that's the first item of this case.
And 70 next, please.
This is the front of that same iPhone.
Going to 71.
This is the gray MacBook, item number 3. As you can see the _3, and it says the model and serial number.
72.
Just a wider version of the same MacBook.
Ms. Gilman, 73, please.
This one looks kind of gold, but I believe this is the same gray MacBook, just the cover.
Ms. Gilman, if you could now go to 74.
This is the iPhone 13 mini, item number 5.
And the case has been taken off of that now?
That's correct.
75, please, Ms. Gilman.
And that is the front of the device.
76, please.
To show that the phone is the passcode, it's locked.
Same device.
Same device, yes.
77, please.
Again, front of the phone showing that it was still active and getting messages.
And 78, please.
This is the Apple iPad Mini 6, I believe, item number 7. It says, again, shows the model and serial number of the device.
You can take that down, Ms. Gilman. So all of those devices and all of the devices that you see is pursuant to a search warrant at the Walsh home at 516 Chief Justice Highway in Cohasset were all Apple products. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And what are Apple devices?
Apple devices, they're just a brand of digital devices, phones, MacBooks, iPads, they're all electronic devices.
That's the manufacturer?
That's correct.
What is an Apple ID?
So the Apple ID is a personalized ID for your Apple devices that can be used to download apps, go to the App Store, download music, movies, whatever you please.
What does a person use their Apple ID for?
As I said, to download items, set up the accounts, it's usually an email address, and then they're able to sync other devices with it if need be.
Can a person have more than one Apple ID?
Registered to a device, yes.
How can an Apple device be secured?
Either Face ID or 4 or 6-digit passcode, or alphanumeric as well.
What is a web browser?
The web browser is whatever program you're using to view the internet, whether it be Microsoft Edge, Safari, Google Chrome.
You mentioned Safari. What specifically is Safari?
So Safari is Apple's web browser that they have installed on all their devices.
Can other web browsers be used with Apple devices?
Yes.
So I want to talk now about forensically examining devices. When did you begin forensically extracting or making forensic copies of the devices that you seized from the house with the search warrant?
After the search warrants were signed, the 10th we began extracting, but we're limited to one gray key machine, so we have to place one on it, download it, and then we can swap the devices to the next and so forth until we get through everything.
And did any other troopers assist you with the extraction or copying of the devices?
Yes. Detective Lieutenant Ed Keefe, Lieutenant Sean Quirk, and Trooper Connor Keefe were all assisting.
You've discussed Trooper Connor Keefe before, but who are Lieutenant Sean Quirk and Detective Lieutenant Ed Keefe?
At the time, both of them were part of the cybercrime unit for the Mass State Police.
In general, what is a forensic copy of a device?
When we create a digital copy.
All right, so a quick look at the Brian Walsh trial, day 2 of that trial, going through some of the minutia of Apple technology, different forensics, things of that nature, all a part of building a case, all a part of going through a trial, what you see there in that courtroom right now. Okay, we have the Chesapeake Bay Watershed Agreement Executive Council meeting happening live right now. Chesapeake Bay, a critical part of our ecosystem, our economy, and our way of life here in Hampton Roads. So let's go live out to this Executive Council on new agreements, new goals, new terms for the Chesapeake Bay.
It's a one-way street. That way we can get the information and not change anything on the devices themselves.
And where is the original device kept after it has been forensically copied?
If the item was given on consent, we'll return it as soon as possible. If it's evidence, then it'll get...
Advisory committees. 4, because I'll mention a second why we've added one as well. The second, we received a State of the Program report from EPA's Bay Program's new director, Dr. Dan Coogan. The third, we approve revisions to the existing 2014 Chesapeake Watershed Agreement, which will help set the stage for the next 15 years of our partnership together. The fourth, we approve structure and governance recommendations to simplify and also amplify our work. The fifth, we've included a charge to include tribes as a formal and enduring partner in the Chesapeake Bay program, with recommendations to be completed in the first half of 2026. And the sixth, we elected my colleague and friend, Governor Josh Shapiro of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, to serve as the next chair of the Executive Council. You will hear more on each and every one of these items shortly. But I first do want to take a moment just to acknowledge the progress that we have made collectively. Because knowing that progress does not happen because of a single initiative or single moment, that partnership produces progress, and nothing else ever will. And the momentum that we are now seeing throughout the Chesapeake Bay to be able to protect this heirloom is because of partnership. That we're only 40 years into a concerted effort to make sure that we're restoring the Chesapeake Bay and the land and the waterways that surround it, knowing that we did not create it, but it is our job to protect it. And I say only with intentionality because I understand that 40 years is nearly half an average lifetime. But we also want to be clear that there were no challenges that we inherited that were too intimidating for this group. That by 1980, after 100 years of mass industrialization, the Bay was dying. A combination of fertilizers and pesticides, wastewater pollution, trash, and debris were not just killing fish and wildlife, but also for many people, and for many people in our jurisdictions, it was killing a way of life. That the lands and the waters that surrounded the bay were in trouble due to unchecked forest and habitat loss. So we saw how the federal government stepped up, that the EPA brought together scientists and studied the issue and released a landmark report in the fall of 1983 that ignited a movement to save the bay and also save its watershed. And since then, we have all then worked collectively, understanding our shared responsibility to make sure that we were getting it right as individual jurisdictions as well. That we have promoted farming practices that reduce fertilizer runoff. That we built natural habitats like oyster reefs and wetlands and conserved natural spaces all across the watershed. That our progress thus far has been undeniable, but we also know that we have more work to do. That since 2014, Bay partners have reduced nitrogen and phosphorus runoff by more than 15% compared to 2009. We're proud of that. And there's more work to do. That today we work together to add billions of oysters, plant millions of trees, educate thousands of students every single year, some of whom you might have passed as you were coming in here, seeing our amazing students from the state of Maryland, to make sure that we're educating them not only be part of the process, but understand that they should be educated on why this work is so necessary and so required as well. And so, especially in this time of this political divisiveness and vitriol, the thing that I want to remind people is that whether it's up on this stage or here in the audience, we have people from multiple different states and jurisdictions, people from multiple different political backgrounds, political experiences, family experiences. But regardless of what separates us, we're here all united with a common goal. Protect the Bay. Protect its history. Protect the people who rely on its for livelihood. Protect the chance that for each and every one of our future generations, that they can have something that they can flourish in and enjoy and celebrate. Protect the
All right, back here in the Live Impact News studio, a really interesting event. Governor Shapiro from Pennsylvania, Governor Youngkin from Virginia, Mayor Bowser from Washington, D.C., all in attendance as they create new grounds for running the Chesapeake Bay. There is a little bit of a buzz there coming from our audio. It may have been a bit distracting. With that in mind and the fact that President Trump's cabinet meeting has just begun and is open to the press, we're going to go out to Washington, D.C. and listen in on President Trump during his cabinet meeting now.
We've secured commitments of over $18 trillion. So they had, in 1 year, less than $1 trillion. That's in a period of 4 years. Think of it, 4 years they had less than $1 trillion. In 10 months, we have more than $18 trillion. Is that right, Scott? It's even going to be higher than that.
It'll be higher by
and
the
going
end of
up.
this, sir.
And we're waiting for the Supreme Court case, and it's so important and so vital for this country because we're not only respected again, we're putting out wars by our trade policies, and we're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars, and our country is wealthy again and secure again, and it's part of national security, and I hope that goes well. I think it's very important, but think of the number. We're going to be over $18 trillion in 10 months, and which is a record times probably 8 or 10 times, I think more than that, for any country. There's never been a country that's had that kind of an investment ever in history. And there's never been a country that's had half of that. It's a tremendous thing that's taking place. We have companies moving in from all over the world, from Mexico, from Canada, from Europe, from China, from Japan a lot. We just had Toyota is going to spend $10 billion, they just announced, on building new plants in this country. Our workers, they're going to be our workers, but they're spending a tremendous amount. So the stock market is set 46 all-time highs, and this last Friday, which is called Black Friday, was the biggest ever online sales that there's ever been by a lot. More Americans are working today than at any time in the history of our country. I mean, these are the facts we have to get out. And, you know, there's this fake narrative that the Democrats talk about, affordability. They just say the word. It doesn't mean anything to anybody. They just say it. Affordability. I inherited the worst inflation in history. There was no affordability. Nobody could afford anything. The prices were massively high. Do you remember when we took over eggs? You did a great job on that, Madam Secretary. Agriculture, Brooke. Eggs were 4 or 5 times higher than they had ever been. They said don't order eggs for Easter at the White House. And we ended up doing it, and we got the egg prices way down, lower than what they were before. But the word affordability is a con job by the Democrats. They say affordable. I watched the other day where some very low IQ congresswoman talked about affordability, affordability, affordability. She had no idea. Their prices were much higher. As an example, energy, gasoline, we're now at about $2.50 a gallon. We're going to be, I think, at $2 a gallon. We could even crack that at some point. I'd love to do it. And we could do it more easily if we weren't building up the strategic national reserves, which Biden emptied out before the election so that he could try and get elected, meaning he started it, then he got thrown out of the race. Then she took over and she kept it going, and they emptied out these strategic national reserves, which are really meant for something else. They're not meant to keep people happy with their gasoline price. They're meant for war. They're meant for problems, big problems. He emptied it out, and then she continued it during the process of trying to get elected. Didn't work out too well for him. And they virtually brought it down to the lowest level, I believe, in history. And it didn't have much of an impact because the prices were very high. But our prices now for energy, but for gasoline, are really low. Electricity's coming down. And when that comes down, everything comes down. But the word affordability is a Democrat scam. They say it, and then they go on to the next subject. And everyone thinks, oh, they had lower prices. No, they had the worst inflation in the history of our country. Now, some people will correct me, because they always love to correct me, even though I'm right about everything. But some people like to correct me, and they say 48 years. I say it's not 48 years, it's much more. But they say It's the worst inflation that we've had in 48 years. I say ever, but whether it's 48 years or ever, it's pretty bad. We had the worst inflation that we've ever had. Since last January, we've stopped inflation in its tracks. And there is still more to do. There's always more to do, but we have it down to a very good level. It's going to go down a little bit further. You want to have a little tiny bit of inflation, otherwise that's not good either. Then you have a thing called deflation, and deflation can be worse than inflation. But we have it almost, we'll soon be at a perfect level, but we inherited the worst inflation. But we have 20 states that are now selling gasoline at less than the $2.75, think of that, $2.75, and it was at $5 under Sleepy Joe. Grocery prices are down with the cost of Thanksgiving turkey this year down 33%. It was lower than 33% lower than under the Biden administration. Egg prices are way down 86%, thank you. And mortgage rates, despite the fact that we have an incompetent chairman of the Fed, a real dope, who should reduce rates. I saw even Jamie Dimon said he should be reducing rates. I never saw Jamie Dimon say that. I wonder why he said that. But he really said it because he's right. But we have a guy that's just a stubborn ox who probably doesn't like your president, your favorite president. But they're going to be coming down. We'll be announcing somebody probably early next year for the new chairman of the Fed. I talked to Scott about taking the job, but he doesn't want it. You got the greatest job here.
Yes, sir.
Right? He said, no, I want to stay chairman. I want to stay right where we are, Treasury. And I think we're doing really great, aren't we?
We're doing great, sir. It's a great team to be part of.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Under my executive order to lower prescription drug prices, which I think is the single biggest thing we've ever done that nobody writes about because you're fake news. I've made unprecedented deals along with Bobby and Oz and all of the people that work on it. A lot of people that you wouldn't even think work on it, but they do, to slash drug prices by 200%, 300%, 400%, 500%, 600%, 700%, 800%. Nobody's ever heard of it before because I instituted favored nations and no nation agreed to do it. And then I said to the nations, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to charge you 100% tariff, which is more money than we're talking about. And they said, sir, we'd love to do it. Please, we would be honored to do it. And they agreed that they would go along with the whole thing. Nobody thought you could do it because they felt, number one, you couldn't get the drug companies to do it. So we're paying, as an example, for the, let's call it the fat drug, F-A-T, for fat people. Anybody use it at the table? Don't ask. But the fat drug was $135. Think of that. For certain people, $1,300 for certain countries, $1,300 in New York. So in New York, it was $1,300, and in London, it was $135. And a friend of mine called me, he said, what is this? Why is it? He got used to paying $1,300. Well, now what we have it down to is, Bobby, what's the number, like 150 or something?